The saga of the T-34, fire on the Kursk battlefield, and the fall of a legend. Picture this, it's the summer of 1943, and the fields around Kursk, Russia, are shaking with the roar of thousands of tanks. The air is thick with smoke, dust clouds the horizon, and flashes of artillery light up the sky like a 4th of July show gone wild. At the heart of this chaos is the Soviet T-34, a tank hailed as unbeatable. With its sloped armor, a beefy 76mm gun, and a diesel engine, it was a game-changer in 1941, leaving German tank crews shouting, "It's a monster," over their radios. But here, at the Battle of Kursk, the T-34 faces a brutal test. Why did 75% of these tanks end up as blazing wrecks? How did a masterpiece of engineering start to show its age? And what does this epic tale tell us about war, tech, and the human spirit? This isn't just a story about a tank. It's a saga of courage, ingenuity, and the harsh realities of war. We'll dive into the inferno of Kursk, peek inside the factories where T-34s were born, and uncover why this legend caught fire literally. I'll throw in some economic insights, my own take, and a dash of suspense to keep you hooked. Buckle up, folks, this is a wild ride through one of the most epic chapters of World War II. Chapter 1. The birth of a titan. To get why the T-34 was such a big deal, let's rewind to the late 1930s. The Soviet Union was gearing up for a massive war. Europe was a powder keg. Hitler was annexing territories, the Munich Agreement had collapsed, and the world was on edge. In a factory in Kharkiv, Ukraine, engineer Michael Koshkin and his team were cooking up something revolutionary, the T-34. Rolled out in 1940, this tank was a masterpiece of simplicity. Its sloped armor deflected shells like a champ. Its 76mm gun could punch through almost anything the Germans had, and its diesel engine was tough and fuel-efficient, unlike gas engines that went up in flames too easily. Best of all, it was built for mass production, a must-have for wartime. The Soviet economy was in overdrive. Historians estimate the USSR's GDP in 1940 was around $417 billion in today's dollars, with a huge chunk poured into defense. In 1941, the Soviets churned out about 3,000 T-34s, and by 1943, that number skyrocketed to 15,000 a year. Compare that to Germany, which managed just 3,800 tanks of all types in 1941. Soviet factories like Chelyabinsk's Tankograd ran 24/7s, with workers, many of them women and teens, sleeping at their machines to keep the front supplied. It was an industrial marathon, a testament to grit and determination. For Soviet soldiers, the T-34 was a beacon of hope. It outclassed German Panzer IIs and early Panzer IVs, leaving Nazi generals like Guderian scrambling to catch up. He wrote in his memoirs, "The T-34 forced us to rethink our entire tank strategy." Crews loved it for its simplicity. Even a farm kid could learn to drive it in a couple of days. But by 1942, storm clouds were gathering, threatening to dim the T-34's shine. Chapter 2. Cracks in the armor. By 1942, the Germans were done being stunned. The T-34 had given them a bloody nose, so they fought back hard. They upgraded their Panzer IVs and Stug 3 assault guns with long-barreled 75mm KWK-40 cannons, capable of piercing the T-34's armor from nearly a mile away. Even scarier was the PaK-40 anti-tank gun, a 75mm beast that could knock out T-34s from over a mile out. The T-34's invincible reputation was taking a hit. The tank's own flaws didn't help. Its ammo storage, called the ammunition rack, was a ticking time bomb. A direct hit often triggered an explosion, turning the tank into a fireball. There was a myth that diesel fuel didn't burn, but that was bunk. Sure, diesel's less flammable than gas, but a high explosive or shaped charge shell could heat the fuel tanks enough to ignite them. Worse, the T-34 lacked partitions between the crew compartment and the fuel tanks. One breach, and fuel would leak, mix with sparks, and boom, game over. Then there was the crew training, or lack thereof. In the chaos of war, firefighting drills were rare. The T-34s came with tetrachloro fire extinguishers, but those things spewed toxic fumes that could choke the crew as much as the fire itself. Imagine being trapped in a burning tank, smoke blinding you, and your only tool making the air poisonous. It was a nightmare straight out of a horror flick. Yet the crews fought on, knowing their steel beast might become their coffin. Chapter 3. The Battle of Kursk. A fiery crucible. Fast forward to July 1943. The Battle of Kursk. This wasn't just a battle, it was a clash of titans that changed the course of World War II. Over 2 million soldiers, 8,000 tanks, and 5,000 planes duked it out in what historians call the largest tank battle ever. The T-34 was about to face its toughest challenge yet. After the fighting, Soviet engineers examined 154 knocked-out T-34s. The findings were grim. 75% of them burned. In 48% of cases, the fire started from an ammo rack explosion. Another 25% caught fire from shell hits that didn't even touch the ammo. During the defensive phase of Kursk, up to 75% of T-34s were total losses. Even heavy tanks like the KV-1 weren't much better, with 40 to 60% destroyed for good. What caused this carnage? German high-explosive and shaped charge shells sliced through the T-34's armor like a hot knife through butter. The Luftwaffe's dive bombers, like the Ru-87 Stuka, added to the chaos, dropping bombs that punched through tanks and set fuel tanks ablaze. One T-34 took a bomb to its right side, igniting the diesel. The crew fought to put out the flames, but it was no use. The time from a hit to a full-on explosion ranged from 5 to 90 minutes, just enough for the crew to realize their fate, but not enough to save the tank. The Germans weren't invincible either, but their new tanks like the Tiger and Panther were beasts. A Tiger's 88mm gun could take out a T-34 from 1.5 miles away, often before the Soviet tank could even return fire. It was a brutal wake-up call. Chapter 4. The economics of war and the cost of victory. Building the T-34 was a feat of Soviet industry. In 1943, the USSR funneled about 60% of its budget into the war effort. Factories in Chelyabinsk, Sverdlovsk, and Nizhny Tagil pumped out up to 15,000 tanks a year. But speed came at a cost. Rushed production led to weak welds, shaky components, and no partitions to protect crews from fuel leaks. Compare that to Germany, which bet on quality over quantity. A single Tiger tank cost about $1 million in today's dollars, while a T-34 ran about $130,000. The Soviet strategy was simple: flood the battlefield with tanks, even if it meant cutting corners. Kursk exposed the T-34-76's obsolescence. The Soviets responded with the T-34-85, sporting a bigger 85mm gun, but it didn't fix the fire problem or the cramped crew space. Only after the war, with tanks like the T-44 and automatic fire suppression systems, did these issues start to fade. The Soviet economy pulled off a miracle, but at a staggering cost: millions of lives, ruined cities, and drained resources. Victory was forged in factories as much as on the battlefield. Chapter 5. Lessons from the flames. The T-34's story at Kursk is about more than steel and fire, it's about people. The crews who fought in those burning tanks showed courage that deserves to be remembered. The engineers who built the T-34 created a machine that changed warfare. But Kursk teaches us that even the best tech can fall behind if it doesn't evolve. Today, tanks like the M1 Abrams or Russia's T-90 carry the T-34's legacy, but the challenges remain: balancing armor, firepower, and speed, protecting crews, and keeping costs in check. Kursk reminds us that war is a race between grit and innovation, and neither can win alone. Hey folks, this is just the start of an epic World War II saga. Subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments what you think of the T-34 and Kursk. Want more stories like this? Tell us, and we'll keep digging into the past to bring you more thrilling tales.